Welcome back to The Human Perspective. This month we're celebrating LGBTQI Pride. Today's guest is Allison Nickel, who has been doing cutting-edge legal work her entire career. Allison Nickel developed her passion for fighting for the civil rights of people with HIV during the epidemic's earliest days. Allison would say, "Everybody has a list, and mine is long, and shaped the footprint of my adult life," referring to the list of those she knew who died from the HIV epidemic. Unbeknownst to me, Allison has written and published both poetry and fiction regarding the epidemic, and while living in Chicago, was the only female member of the square dance drag troupe, the She-Devils, whose performances raised money to fight the epidemic. We're going to get you a picture of the She-Dance in the future. She was raised as an Irish Catholic, and her core belief is that the central purpose of being a member of the human family is to care for and be in service to one another. We're all just walking each other home. Welcome, Allison. So, the ADA provides protections for people who have HIV. Could you give us a little bit of information about some of the cases that Justice and others have been addressing over the years, and why you think these cases are important?
First of all, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. Yes, so the way that we cover people with HIV under the civil rights laws is under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and there is coverage under some other civil rights laws, but that's the primary one. And people should understand that they enjoy civil rights protections if they're a person with HIV, or if they're regarded as, or someone assumes they're a person with HIV. That's one of the cases I'm about to talk about. From virtually cradle to grave, so in education, in employment, in public accommodations, in dental care and health care, you enjoy protections from being denied service in really every aspect of your life through the ADA. Some recent examples of that, and the examples I'm going to give really come even just out of the last 2 years. Now we are more than 30 years into this pandemic, and you're still seeing very basic routine forms of discrimination. If you go on the Justice Department's website, you'll see recent cases of denial of something as simple as getting a flu shot in a Rite Aid grocery store, pharmacy, denial of dental care, denial of surgery, denial of massage therapy. We did the Wales West case. There was a young family, an older family with a young toddler with HIV who they had adopted, and they weren't allowed to stay there because they didn't want the child swimming in the swimming pool. I mean, these are things we really decided in the late 80s.
So a lot of people still not understanding what HIV/AIDS is.
I think that's right. And I see one of my primary jobs is, I call it changing the movie that's running in someone's head, because the movie about HIV was made in the late 80s and nobody's really updated people's information. The other kinds of discrimination you're seeing, and I think you're going to see more of, are people with HIV being denied entry into assisted living and retirement homes, because people are living normal lifespans now, and as a result of that, need the same kind of care as everyone else does. And Lambda did a case just a couple of years ago of a doctor who was denied care because they didn't want to have to do his laundry. So there's a broad disconnect between the reality of the science of transmission and people's thinking about that.
What is Lambda?
I'm sorry, Lambda Legal Defense. Used to be Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund. Now it's Lambda Legal, and they do primarily impact litigation and education on a range of LGBTQIAP issues. Just to make sure I'm including everyone. And they did a lot of the gay marriage work. You'll be seeing them doing a lot of the anti-discrimination work, trying to get the religious rights state statutes they're trying to pass that gives religions their permission to discriminate against everyone, including my community. So they've been around for a very long time. They've been really at the forefront of all of our civil rights work. But other great HIV work has been done by my brilliant colleague Rhonda Goldfein in Philadelphia, who I worked with Ed Justice and Have Sense, and there's still a lot of employment discrimination against people with HIV. The EEOC just did a case of that kind of discrimination 2 months ago. The other, I think, major area that you're seeing, Robert Greenwald, who works one of the clinics at Harvard Law School, filed in conjunction with local advocates 9 or 10 complaints under what are, at least for today, the civil rights provisions of the Affordable Care Act.
Mhm.
So what insurance companies were doing under the Affordable Care Act, similar to what they were doing before we had it, which is jerry-rigging the system so that people with HIV are not attracted to getting into their plans. And they do that by putting them in the highest cost plans or putting their medications in the highest tier. So there's still a broad range of routine kinds of discrimination against people with HIV. All of that would be barred by the ADA and with respect to the healthcare, the 1557 provisions.
How are people from the LGBTQA community being informed about what their rights are under the Americans with Disabilities Act?
I think the Justice Department's Disability Rights section has done a fantastic job of doing educational work. David Knight, one of their great attorneys who works there, of course there are many, he's done a lot of outreach. Every time he goes on travel, he finds an LGBT group that he can bring education to about their coverage, the HIV coverage, and they've done a ton of outreach. If you go on their website, you'll see there are literally dozens, and they continue to do that work. The other way is through the actual agreements that they are with. I mean, settlement agreements and litigation are to stop the behavior that's illegal and to award some kind of damage to the person who's been harmed. But it also has a much greater purpose, which is to educate the broader business community, the broader educational community, the broader medical community, whatever it is, as well as people who have HIV or people who have a particular kind of disability at issue, that their behavior is cabined by this federal civil rights law, and what they're doing is illegal, and the Justice Department is on the hunt for those folks, and they're finding them, and they do a very good job through all social media, and they have a great website. They do a lot of training and outreach on getting the word out on that. So it would be very difficult for someone this many years into the ADA, with all of the work that Justice has done, to say, gee, I just didn't know that this was against
So
the law.
there's a good connection between the LGBTQI community knowing to look to the Justice Department for ADA when someone believes they've been discriminated against based on their disability.
Yes, I think that's right. That's certainly been my assessment, and you can actually file a complaint online now. You don't even have to make a connection, an actual connection with them. You can go on their website and you can file a complaint under Title II or Title III. Title I, of course, employment, you have to file that first with your local EEOC office, but under Title II and III, you can go right onto the website. And one of the things we did when I was still there is we had what's called a widget exported. So it was the red ribbon, and so if you took that red ribbon and you were a social worker who dealt with a lot of people with HIV and put it on your computer, and they came in complaining they lost their job or that they'd been denied something, you could click on that right from your desk and they could automatically file a complaint. And so they made it incredibly easy over time to connect with them.
You're also involved with something called the Zero Project. Could you give us a little bit of information about what the Zero Project is, what it's been doing, some of its successes, how people can get involved?
Sure, and thank you for that question. The Zero Project, and Zero meaning Zero Convert is where that language comes from, is a nonprofit. It was started by a wonderful person, Sean Strube, who was in a lifetime of advocacy. One of the great things that he did was he started Pause Magazine. And he started this organization when it became apparent that people with HIV were being disproportionately and alarmingly adversely affected by the application of criminal laws. I think not too many people know that 33 to 36, depending on how you count, states have we call an HIV-specific criminal law. So to put that in terms people can understand, A meets B, A is positive, B is negative, they engage in sex, A cannot prove that he disclosed to B that he had HIV, welcome to 30 years in prison. So these are very draconian laws, and they are putting lots of good people behind bars for very long periods of time, sometimes for a longer period of time than you would for murdering someone. It's really shocking, some of the outcomes here. You have a person in Texas who is serving 40 years for spitting on a police officer while having HIV, and that is not a way in which the virus can even be transmitted. And there are many others of the kind that I just described, and under almost none of these laws does it matter whether or not you are on the medicine that makes you undetectable, whether you used a condom or engaged in other risk reduction measures, whether the person you were having the activity with is undertaking their own risk reduction measure by being on a drug that allows you to not become infected if you take it every day. So CERO's purpose is to get at these laws, but it's really to ensure that people with HIV's voices are heard, and that they are at the center of determining the policy and how these laws should be modernized, because they're the people's lives who are being the most affected. And so we do a conference every other year, the only national conference on this issue. And we spend our time with advocates in different states who are working with their local advocates, their local legislatures, but we're there to provide information and support and to lift up their voices, and to ensure that people with HIV are a very important part of that discussion and that decision-making process.
Well, I can't believe it, but it's time for us to close. So this is obviously a discussion that we will continue, and I really wanted to have Allison come and speak about these issues, Sero Project in particular, because I think it's something many people are not aware of. So I'd like to thank Allison for being our first guest of this month, and thank you, the audience, for tuning in to The Human Perspective. Captioning will be available in 24 hours. The disability rights and LGBTQI movements have many similar parallels. They almost mirror each other. Both have battled segregation, isolation, and health issues on many levels. As we celebrate LGBTQI Pride Month, let's take note that there is so much work that we need to do for those that fall on both sides of the fence and are still striving to belong. I'm looking forward to our next conversation in 2 weeks with Andy Arias, actor and disability rights advocate. Please don't forget to share today's video. Also follow me on Facebook and Twitter as we continue to share stories and information about the empowerment of disabled people in the U.S. and around the world. Thank you.